That's close enough.
My parents are born in 49. It's not their birthday, so that's how I remember.
It's factory.
They're what?
My parents are born in 1949.
Yeah. Mine are both born in 50 to make math easy for me, so I like that. Convenient.
We was talking to one from Florida about it. We called his mom.
So, how long have you been married?
54 years.
Are you interested too?
Interested.
Okay. How did you guys meet?
How did we meet?
Well,
You look like you have a story there.
really, she was born in Montgomery, Alabama, and both her parents passed away when she was fairly young. And she came here to Muncie to live with an aunt and uncle, and that's how we met. We thought our paths would have never crossed had that not happened. And that was when we were still in school. She was probably about 15, something like
13, 14.
when she first came here.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were high school sweethearts. I went in service. She wrote to me every day, and we got married when I came home.
You wrote to him every day.
Every day, and I didn't realize it. I guess I don't know. But I know I did it.
Yeah, I guess
Your hand
what
would
got me
fall.
We
hooked.
talked about that all the time.
Every day at mail call, I would have a letter. And some of those other guys, they never would get a letter. They'd be so angry and upset, and I'd have a letter every day from her for 2 years.
So,
When did you pop the question?
Oh, I was probably home about a year before we got married. 'Cause I came home in the summer of 47. And we got married.
If I graduate, 4 years, I graduated.
You've gone to Ball State for a year when we got married. So, yeah, you gotta ask some questions. It's so long I had to stop and think.
Yeah, because I graduated from high school in 47,
Mm-hmm.
and
I graduated in 45 and went in service right after graduation.
then after you got married, you decided not to finish your college education, or what happened?
Started a family. She dropped out, then she went back.
and it wasn't that easy to get money either.
Oh, yeah.
Can't imagine.
Yeah, I think I had $200 when we got married.
Did you have to apply for loans and things, or?
I know I went to the School of Practical Nursing,
Mhm.
in Ball State, when Ball Hospital formed that. And Hurley's mother encouraged me to go. And I had the two little boys. No, I didn't have, Fred wasn't born. Yeah. But she told me, I said, we don't have any money to go, do anything like that. She said, I will loan you the money, and you can pay me back. And she said, well, go ahead, and she said, and I will help you with children. So I said, well, I'll take her up on that, and that's how I just went right on through there, through that. And then then I started working at the hospital and worked all the time.
And you retired recently, didn't you? Or when did you retire?
91.
91.
91.
Mm-hmm. I worked a long time at the hospital.
So, I know a little bit about you, but not much about you.
Right.
What? Yeah. How many brothers and sisters did you have when you were little? Or do you have?
Five.
I guess, 5?
5. There was 6 of us.
5
5
girls and
girls
1
and
boy.
1 boy. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And they're all still alive. That's an amazing thing.
Are they close to here, or some in Alabama, or?
Spread all over.
all over the country?
I have a sister in Detroit, one in Albany, two in
in
Albany.
Albany, New York, and one in Omaha, Nebraska, and her brother's in Columbus, Georgia. Is that all of it?
Yep.
So how do you get together with them very often, or?
Oh yeah, we usually have family reunions, and we all try real hard to go.
Yeah, we got them started here in Muncie about 25 or 30 years ago, because they had all been together, you know, one at a time. Like they would come visit with us, one of them, but all 6 of them had never been together at the same time, probably for 30-some years. And it was 1972. And we started here in Muncie and said we need to start having a family reunion, get together. In the first 3 years, we met every year. And we had the first 2 here in Muncie, and one in Detroit, and then back in Muncie, and then we started going all over the country. But we started every other year then, because people started saying, well, I don't have time to do anything else, you know, every summer. We're tired with reunions, so let's do it every other year. So I think we had the 14th one this year in Omaha, Nebraska. And the next one will be 2 years, what is 2004 in Waterbury, Connecticut. So we move around like that all over.
You know what? I didn't introduce myself. I forgot to say I'm Abby. I don't know
Oh,
if you know me.
I've talked to you on the phone.
Yeah, I know. I just forgot. And Carrie, I wasn't sure if you knew us.
Yeah.
But you know, I kind of think about Hurley's mom, you know, when we see everything that we've done in our lifetime, because we've been able to do so many things. And she always encouraged us, and she said that she was encouraging me to go to school because she was a widow with her 3 little boys, and she raised them, you know, by herself. So she didn't want me to be without help, and she knew we wouldn't just take the money, so she said, I'll loan it to you. And you can pay me back when you start making some money.
Did she play kind of like a mother figure role in your life?
No, not really. I mean, you know, we were close, but see, I had aunts and all of them, you know. Yeah.
She wasn't so much a mother to Fredine as much as Fredine was a daughter to her, because Fredine really took care of her in her latter years, because she was 99 and a half when she died.
That's pretty old.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
In 1994.
She lived in town.
Yeah, she lived with us for up to the last 4 years of her life. She started falling here at home, and I was in Indianapolis in the legislature at that time, and Fredine was working, so we had to do something, you know, so we were afraid to come here and find her laying on the floor dead somewhere, and we finally had to give up.
That's the same way I feel about that little lady I called.
Just worry.
You think about them, because she's real active and she thinks she can do more than she can. And they fall and be there and nobody knows it, you know.
Is that lady, is she a neighbor or
just a friend, just a good friend of ours. We've known her ever since
Right, since we got married. We used to go by their home a lot.
Yeah.
Her husband was he thought he was Louis Armstrong. He always liked to sing, I'm confessing, that I love you, but I'll never forget Uncle Bill. We call him Uncle Bill, but he had a nephew that's the same age I went to high school with. And we used to go by their home when we were real young. You know, you didn't have any money. Back at that time, we would go to each other's home and put all the babies in one bed, and we would go by their home. You know, they'd always have a bottle of wine or something.
And she's
record.
an excellent cook, and she'd have everything all cooked up for us.
So then Freddie just kind of adopted her, especially after my mother passed away, and kind of checks on her all the time, makes sure she has what she needs, and goes to the doctor and takes her medicine and all that kind of stuff. So it's just that kind of friendship and relationship.
She's a little lady.
That's why they're the cutest, though.
Oh, she is.
Do you find that you give and get a lot of support from people in the community? How so?
No question
Who?
about that. Yeah. Well, you know, like I say, we've been out in so many different issues and so many fronts and all, you know, and people have always been real supportive of me and what I've done. And of course, Freddie, I couldn't have done anything without her help and support, because campaigning, she was the best campaigner I had, you know, because she would talk to everybody and go everywhere, and we would always be together, which was really unusual for a black couple. Very seldom you see a man and wife work together as well as we worked together. She was always very supportive of anything that I was doing in whatever way she could be, and I always tell this story that when I was in Indianapolis at the legislature, I would go in the governor's office and talk to the governor, and he'd ask me, he said, "How's Freddie doing?" I said, "Well, you haven't asked me how I'm doing yet." How she's doing, but she really helped break the ice for me down there, because a lot of those guys, you know, you go in there as 100 different people, really 150, because you're talking about 50 senators and 100 representatives, and you don't know any of them very well. But she got active in the legislative wives group and met a lot of those women. A lot of those guys, before it was over, they come say, "My wife talked to your wife. She says she's really a nice lady," and all, you know, and then they'd start talking to me.
Right.
And that's the way it would break the ice. And then we'd see them at a social function. You know, they had these dinners and receptions and all that every night. And we would always go as a couple. And when we would go in as a couple, they would be there as a couple. And we'd just start talking and interacting, you know, with each other. And it was a real asset to me that, you know, she was the kind of spouse that she was. And it was really hard for her, because she was working at the hospital all the time. And
So the
if we
balancing
were doing
act.
something, she'd take clothes to the hospital, change her uniform, get on the bus, and come to Indianapolis. Fortunately, the bus station was right across the street from the State House. And I would meet the bus when she got there. Sometimes she'd just walk on over there. But we were fortunate enough that the kind of setup we had, my state senator and I were roommates down there. And so we rented an apartment and shared. It was a 2-bedroom apartment with a living room and kitchenette, 2 bathrooms, and all in Raleigh Towers. And both of the wives would bring their evening clothes and things, put them in the closet, and she just wear blue jeans or whatever she had on the bus down there. And then in the evening, when we get ready to go out for these receptions and parties, they could change into their normal clothes, dress up clothes, and we would go on and do it. And then she'd get on the bus, come back to Muncie next day.
Bus leave town
Because I'd have to stay down there all week.
at 8 o'clock in the morning.
On Friday.
Yeah,
But
get
she
on the
did that
bus.
for 14 years. That's a long time.
It was a long
Oh my
time.
goodness. So did you feel you lost connection with like your base that you had here, like the? I mean, I know you're representing
No.
them, but
Sometimes you'd like to get rid of them.
A lot of times, if it'd be something really special, you know, we would invite a lot of
Some of our
them, people that
friends
work and supported me, you know, they'd go with us. And when you're down there, you get a lot of freebies, like you get tickets to IU and Purdue football games and basketball games and all that. And we had some friends that had a van, and we would take, and each legislator gets, I think it's 2 tickets or 4 tickets, but anyway, I would get enough tickets that we'd have 8 or 10 people in this van, and we'd buy the snacks and food, and we'd go up Purdue to a football game and take people that had worked out and go to IU. And when you're in that process, you know, they have parties for legislators when they get there. A lot of times the president's home, president of the university, and all.
Right.
And we take them along with us, you know. So they were thrilled that they were getting to go and see a football game free and getting fed free and meet the president of universities and all that stuff.
Starry-eyed.
Yeah. So we always try to share with those people, and it worked out real good. Like I say, Freddie and I really were a team, you know, and that was my strength, I think.
What role does religion play in your marriage and in your upbringing of your two sons?
Well, you know, we've always gone to church. You know, I'm not a religious fanatic, you know, or nut or anything like that, but I believe in a supreme being, and you know, I believe that people should be treated the way you want to be treated and all. But I'm not one of those people that think that anybody that doesn't believe like I do is going to hell and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe that in that righteous wrapping that some people put themselves in and become superior to other people. But I do, you know, I have a faith and believe that there's a supreme being, whatever you want to call him, and I guess adhere to at least treating people the way I want to be treated.
What about you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
That's
off.
all right.
Pretty much the same.
We attend church regularly. There at Chapel, that's our home church. And I started there when I was a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a story of that because my mother was Baptist and she belonged to Union, the larger church up here. But our home at that time was a block from Chapel Church, and she could stand in the front door of our home and watch us go to Sunday school. So she put us in Sunday school at Schaffer, and she would watch, and then eventually she said, well, my children are all there, so I'll join there too. So she joined, our whole family became members, and then when Fredine came with her aunt and uncle, her uncle just happened to be a member of that church, and she joined the same church. And so
That's the kind I belong to.
we've been going to church together ever since she was 14, 15 years old. But we didn't get serious until she was probably 17, something like that. In high
You're just like, what? No.
Well, I think we've probably been going together about a year before I went in service. You know, steady. Because she treated me bad, man.
Oh,
Really? How's
She
this?
treated me bad.
What you do to him?
Nothing.
We'd be going somewhere. I didn't have no car. I had to walk, you know.
Everywhere we went, we had one.
Yeah, so she'd walk on the other side of the street and all that stuff. Tell me she didn't want to walk with me and all that kind of stuff.
Just messing with
Give
him?
me a
She just
hard time.
She's playing the hard kid.
He tells me I'm like that.
So is that where you originally met, was in church, when she came to church the first time?
We met in the park. That's when I first saw her. And her cousin and I were real good friends. And I told him, I said, who was that? He said, that's my niece. She's here from Alabama. So I got to meet her. I kept bugging him till I think he introduced me to her. Anyway, that's when I first saw her and got interested in her. You know.
Hurley was real quiet. Quiet. You know, and soft spoken.
Well, I was quiet because I think it's hard for boys that grow up in a family where it's just boys to be comfortable with girls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was very uncomfortable with girls. Always afraid you're gonna get rejected. I guess that's what it is. You know, so you kind of get that shell around you to kind of protect yourself and all. And I was really shy around girls. I have friends of mine, old classmates said, Hurley, I never thought you'd be doing what you're doing. You were so shy.
He's up speaking and all that. He was so quiet and all. When he was growing up, his mother would say, somebody would say, I saw Junior. He said, I guess he spoke. His mouth moved.
Yeah.
Because you know you don't get by passing adults and not speak.
Not back at that
Not,
time.
not in that time.
But you made your sons go to church regularly with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we took them with us when we were little kids, and
Yeah.
they continued to go. I don't think they go that regular now, the way they talk, but they were brought up in the church.
Do you think them that helps them to make the right decisions when it came to stuff?
I hope it helps. Helps some. I think it's all part of that extended family. That people need to really raise their children the way they need. You can't isolate yourself from the world, so you have to expose them to other things, to other people, and hopefully you expose them to the right kind of people that will be the right kind of role models for them. Eventually they'll grow up and want to be like some of those people. I think that's important.
What do you... Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, they don't gain social skills in a vacuum.
Right.
They gain them by being around other people. And if you have people around them that are for the right thing and they see those people doing that and take those lessons, they're more apt to go the right way rather than follow the wrong people,
So when you say extended family, you don't just mean like blood relations?
Oh, no, I think the whole community. And that's one of the things that I see has really changed in our community, is that not only was it my aunts and uncles and grandparents that helped raise us three boys when we were little, it was also the neighbors. They would call. This one lady had a whole lot of cherry trees and apple trees in her yard. And we'd go in there and get some cherry and tear the whole limb off the tree. And she'd call my mother, Miss Goodall, said, Junior was down here tearing limbs off my cherry tree. And what used to be telling my mother I didn't do it because I was going to get 2 whippings in. I'm going to get one for pulling it off and one for lying. Because she said, I know Miss Duvall didn't take time to call me if you wasn't down there pulling them limbs off her tree. And she was right. Every time them people called, said we were doing something we didn't have no business doing, we were doing it. Because they wasn't going to call and tell no lie on no kids. But now, you tell a lot of these parents, your child was out there doing something it hadn't been done. They get mad at you, say, ain't your child, you don't have nothing to do with it. Oh, that's so people just quit doing that. They would, even when our kids were growing up, they would be, I had guys I worked with say, Goodall, I saw your boy stand in the middle of the street in a mud puddle and he wouldn't get out of the way. Said, if been somebody else, they might have run over him, And I'd come home and get on him. But now, people, they just run on through there and splash water and mud on them and keep on going. Say the parent don't have enough sense to tell them to get out of the street. Well, that's tough. But people just don't seem to care about, other people's children and all like they used to. That may be a perception on my part, but I don't think it is totally. I think that's one of the problems that we have, is that village sense of a village raising a child. We've lost that.
Right, a real breakdown of communication between people.
Well, people just feel like, why should I go out of my way to try to help someone's kid when I tell them they're going to get angry with me? It's none of your business. It's not your child. Instead of saying, thank you, Mr. Goodall, I appreciate you letting me know. And get on their kid and say, if you see him do anything, let me know. I want to know. But we've lost that.
Fredine, how have you experienced that? The interacting with other children, and have you seen the same thing he has, or?
Yeah. When it came to our kids and everything, we felt, about the same way.
we always,
We
you
never
know,
did take
yeah,
the
even
lawn.
when our children, when they were growing up and they were playing on the ball team, you know, Muncie Central ball team and all, you know, kids, they get into every now and then, you know, and they'd start around here, there'd be probably 4 or 5 black kids on the team and 7 or 8 white on the basketball or football. Well, football would be a little more. But once in a while they say, we ain't gonna pass them white boys no more because they don't ever pass the ball to us and all that. I said, no, you can't play and win a game like that. You know, we aren't gonna have that. So we would have them all here at the house. And Freddie would fry chicken or fix hot dogs or something. We had a pool table downstairs where they could shoot pool, and they loved that. But we would have them all here, the black and the white kids. And you know, you guys got to get this out of your head. Either y'all play together, or you gonna get thumped. You know, whatever
Right.
you're doing and all. So we would always teach those kids. And Freddie was the one that would go down and pick them up at midnight when they come in from out of town, because I was on the fire department and I was on 24-hour duty. A lot of times they couldn't pick them up. And one day she went down there and the car was full of kids. She said, where's Hurley Jr.? He was standing outside in the field. So well, y'all got to get out. I come down here to get my son.
Didn't make it out.
Yeah, someone had to get out.
Yeah, so, but she would always pick them up after the game, and she'd bring them home, and there's kind of a hangout down the street down here, a little juke joint where the girls would hang out after school. But see, it'd be midnight, and they'd be coming in from Richmond or Lafayette somewhere. And they said, will you let me out down here, Miss Goodall? I forget what they call that place. Nope, I'm going to take you home.
I said, is that where you live? Where
Take
did
you home, you
move?
need to be home in
When did you
bed. Said, if you go down there after I let you out, that's up to you, but you're going to get out at your house, you know. And so she would drive them on to their house, and sometimes they would slip back down there, but she wouldn't let them off there.
No, that's not where I picked you up. I picked you
But
up.
one of the things I found was really, you know, important, and I know a lot of people didn't do it, but I think that's what really happened to those kids. They would go, you know, there were a lot of real hot rivalries here between Anderson and Muncie and Richmond and Muncie and Newcastle, and I remember many a time our boy come in and said, they cheated us, Dad. We should have won that game. They did this. And we would sit there and talk to our kids, you know, for a long time. Tell them, well, you know, that's just the way it is, you know. When they come here to Muncie and you beat them in a close game, they probably feel like they got treated and all. But you would sit there and let that kid talk his anger out. And some of these other kids, they would get out of that car and next thing you know, they'd go start a fight somewhere because they was mad because they thought they got cheated on. And there wasn't anybody that they could sit down with and get that anger out of their system and frustration out of their system. And I think that's what happens to a lot of youngsters now. If they don't have that kind of support at home where they can come home and get their frustrations out on somebody else, they'll go out and do something stupid, trying to take it out, you know, on other people or other kids. And I think it's really important, you know, when you talk about making a home, that should be a place where a child could come and feel safe, and feel loved, and feel wanted. And it helps give them that balance that they need to, you know, to face life's frustration. You know, a lot of people say, well, it's just a ball game, you know, so and so and so. But at that point in time, that's the most important thing in their life. You know, they done worked hard, and they done talked all week, and they want to win, and they're frustrated and mad, and they'll go out and do something stupid if they don't have some way to vent that anger and that frustration. So somebody needs to be there when they come home to sit down and talk to them and let that out. And fortunately, I think that had a lot to do with neither one of our sons ever really getting in any really bad trouble.
That's good.
Well, you keep mentioning home, but I don't really have a concept of what home is to you. What makes a home, a house a home?
Well, I think it's a safe haven where the family can come and get together and bond and talk over their differences and concerns. And I always felt it was important to tell my kids, you know, I was really proud of them when they achieved something, whether it was good grades or winning a game or participating in some kind of contest. You know, we always encouraged them to play a musical instrument because I always felt like that was important. My mother made me, I had a little tuba that I played, but just the fact that I was in that group and learning how to play and cooperate, and I tell people all, Furumachi, Japan, 10,000 miles away from home in the Army. Yeah, so my life changed just that fast, you know. Just being a poor kid that didn't have a chance to go anywhere and do anything to being clear over there in the Far East as a soldier. But it was a great experience, you know, for me to be able to do that and to meet the Japanese people, and I learned a lot, you know. And that's when I tell people that I hear a lot of argument about the atomic bomb and whether Truman should have dropped it on the Japanese or not, you know. And I have some real concerns about the fact it was dropped on the Japanese, but it wasn't dropped on the Germans or the Italians. And why? But when we got there, those Japanese were dug in so deep. They had cities and tunnels all under that place, and we had to dig them out one at a time. I don't have no doubt that I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be over there dead in Japan, because they had killed 1 million American kids trying to dig those Japanese out of those tunnels and bunkers over there. So unless you lived during that time and you understood what the stakes are, a lot of people can sit back and second guess and all of that. But you had to live through that time and be exposed to that to understand why it was done.
Okay.
So,
What do you think makes your home a home?
Like you said, a place where you feel secure. You spend time there and make a pleasant place for them. I know my kids used to love to come home and bring other kids with them. And
How did you do that? How did you make it pleasant for them?
oh, we just did. They went with us a lot. We went a lot, and included them. And they'll start getting ready. So we're going to go to wherever. And they start getting ready because they know they're going too. So spend time with them, answer their questions. And you know, that's why Hurley's like he is. Hurley Jr. is like he is. He's a teacher in Akron, Ohio. And he's been in the classroom for
ever since you graduated from college.
Mm-hmm. And he takes up so much time. The people, you know, the different people there tell about him. He spends so much time with the kids. He visits their homes. He says some kids are just in bad shape for, you know, somebody to care what they did, what they're doing. So he got that from his home, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So like they get home, they can get what they want, and we just didn't take a lot of foolishness, you know, and didn't let them. They could have a say in things, but we were the bosses. Don't ask your daddy and then come ask me.
Are there certain things that make your house at home? Or memories, people?
I don't know.
Oh, I think, you know, it was always a happy home. They never did hear Freddie and I arguing with each other, because we very seldom had an argument, you know.
I didn't have
We
time.
we always tried to, you know,
Work.
respect each other
Yeah.
before our kids, and if we did have a difference about something, we would sit down privately and talk it out. We wouldn't do it in front of our children, and certainly not in front of their friends or guests or anyone, you know. In fact, we were probably considered too goody two-shoes out in the community, you know. And some people would resent that because they would say they're too overconfident, you know. They seem like they got all the answers to everything,
Right.
and you know, then sometimes there might be a little envy of that type. And but you know, that never did bother me because I really didn't care what people thought of me in that way, you know, as long as I felt, you know, that I was doing the right thing. Whether they agreed with me or not, that was up to them. Their opinion didn't motivate me one way or the other.
We definitely involved the kids though in everything, about everything we did.
Oh yeah, we always put them first.
Mm.
And we always vacationed as a family, and whenever we would do anything, we did it as a family. The only thing I did, I had to go to work. But even at the firehouse, Fredine, on a holiday, she would bring those kids to the fire station. And sometimes, you know, we would prepare a meal, and there were anywhere from 3 to 7 guys, depending on what station we were at, and how many trucks were there. And they would bring their family, and we'd all cook a meal and sit down and eat like a big family at the fire station. Their wife would come, their kids would come, and we'd all sit there and have our Christmas dinner or something like if I had to work on Christmas Day. And we would do that, and we developed real, you know, good relationships, and those were racially mixed groups. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't pleasant when I first went there, but once we got over all the hang-ups that people had, well, then I didn't have any more problems like that.
Do you think like this involvement that you had, did that help you feel at home in the community, like making the community part of your home? Like it was a kind of an extension, you know, interacting with other
If
people in that
anything
way?
for me, it probably consumed me. Because I think I ended up being on the point about every controversial issue that came up, whether it was within the educational system or integrating the fire department or, you know, whatever it was. You know, I was pretty much involved in neighborhood association and all that stuff. You know, I was a leader of all that stuff at one point in time in my life, and then you move on to another level. But I was always one of the people that whenever a real issue came up in the community, I would be the first one that people would call and say, Hurley, we need to get together and do thus and so. And then when I got involved in politics, well, I became the one that would call all the political people together, either at my home or someone else's home, and say, we need some things to be done. You know, how do you guys feel about it? Who should we support? And that kind of thing, you know. So that way, I don't know whether power would be the right way, but you develop a certain reputation in the community, and the people who need and want your support have to come to you and ask for it, because they know you can impact what happens. Yeah.
What is, or what was, or what is your role as a mother and a wife?
Understand that.
Like, when Jay Anderson talked about his structure with his wife and him, he said that it was kind of like, this was his analogy, it was him and his wife and his kids. Like he was a president and she was a vice president. And then the kids were like the centers. Like they all made decisions together, but she and him kind of worked together, but he was a little more above her. What is your viewpoint on that? Like how was your marriage structured with your family, with your sons? You said your sons had an input, and then did you guys come together and make a decision together? Was it always 50-50? Were there some things that...
Yeah, we talk about it, but, discuss it.
But most times you try to make, I don't want to stop because they want you to talk. I want to know what you have to say too, but, eventually one person has to make the final decision, and that would usually be me. If there was something that was controversial or, whether we were going to make a major purchase or something like that, we would sit down and talk about it. But finally, when you had to get down to it and somebody had to say yes or no, I would be the one that would usually do that.
So depending on go ahead.
So you had like the final say on everything, kind of?
Yeah, I think eventually somebody has to, or you just sit there and limbo.
Right. Do you think it was situational, like with education, you were more influential, or with, whatever? I'm not sure.
Well, I think with education, with our children, I think we had, I think the expectation is the key, If a child expects, because when I grew up, my mother always told me, said, if I can get you boys through high school and get you a high school education, I've done the best that I can do, my part. So higher education was not even in my expectations when I grew up. When I went into service, I could have come back and gone to college under the GI Bill of Rights. But I came back and I went to Indiana Business College and studied accounting, some of that stuff, but mainly it was to get the $90 a month that they gave you for going to school after that. It wasn't for the education. But when our kids came along, we told them that their education was not completed until they at least had a bachelor's degree. And they grew up with that expectation that high school was not the end of their educational cycle. And I think that's what you have to do as a parent, is to instill that expectation in them. And the thing that I'm most proud of is that hopefully we've got our family on that track now, because all of our grandchildren so far have graduated from college.
That's awesome.
And hopefully that is ingrained in our family now, that our two sons ingrained that in their children.
Right.
And so they have all graduated from college, and now there are two of them still in college, and there are two that haven't got that far yet. But anyway, that's what we told them. Your education, not only, till you get at least a bachelor's degree, that's the key that will open the door to tell you what kind of life you want to have. And I had all these conversations with my oldest son when he went, because he was down there at DePaul University and he got a football scholarship. That's why he was there. And he would always get frustrated because he didn't think the coach was letting him play as much as he should. And so he told me one time he was going to quit. I said, no, you're not going to quit. You're going to finish the season. I said, once you start quitting in the middle of something, you quit everything that you do. And I'm not going to let you quit. You have to go ahead. So he went on, finished out the season, and then he got over it. And he finished and graduated. But the thing I was really pleased with living here in Muncie, I knew that if they couldn't get a scholarship, and that's what happened to our youngest one, he was smaller in stature. Even though he was a good athlete, he wasn't big enough to, they'd run over him on the football field, and he wasn't big enough for basketball. He played a little baseball in high school. But I knew he could go to Ball State and get a good education, and he could stay at home, and we could afford to send him. And at the time he came through college, I think it only cost $700 a year at Ball State to send him out there.
That would be nice
So
to
that was
know.
nice, yeah.
Sounds about right.
And even at that time, it was about $5,000 a year down at DePaul, but Hurley Jr. had football scholarships, so it didn't cost us anything.
Right.
As long as he kept a C or C plus average, whatever it was. But I think you have to build that expectation into your children, or they don't see the value, of having an education. I know I got into a Hurley Jimmy. He told me one time, he said, "You just want me to go to college so you can say your son graduated college." I said, "No, we aren't struggling. We are for that." I said, "I want you to go to college so that you have options to exercise. So if you want to be a wine head sitting on the corner drinking wine, let that be because that's what you want to do, not because you don't know anything else.
Or because you have to.
That you don't have control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So you make your own choices." So that's the way I always felt about our children being educated. We tell our grandchildren the same thing.
Well, you keep mentioning children when we talk about making a home. What about life after children? How has it changed here? Is it different? I mean, obviously it's different,
Yeah,
but
it's
how? What have you changed?
One thing, you don't have to prepare and get ready when you get ready to do something, go somewhere. When my mother was here, especially those last years, she was with us. If I was going to a legislative convention, it was going to last a week, we had to find somebody to come over here and stay with her. Or we had to find, one time, a couple times, we put her took her to a nursing home for a week and all. But the time you do all that stuff, you're so exhausted, you don't want to go anywhere yourself. So now we had a freedom. If I tell Freddie, "Hey, let's go to Indianapolis this weekend, go to a jazz concert and all that," we just pick up and leave and go. We don't have to worry about the kids. We don't have to worry about my mother. We don't have to worry about nothing. We just get in the car and go. And people call and say, "Where were you at?" "Well, I went over to Naptown to a jazz concert or something," and it's a whole lot more freedom for us personally, in that way. And when you have children, first you have to find somebody to take care of those kids or take them with you or whatever. And then if you have an older parent, that compounds the problem.
Right.
Because there at the end, we would have to find someone that would let her go to their home while we were gone. Or like I say, we had one lady that would come here and stay with her, and then we would pay the lady to come over here and stay with her. But
She was in good health.
oh yeah, but we didn't want to leave her by
You couldn't
herself.
leave her.
She was 80 and 90 years old.
Mm.
But the freedom, I think, that we enjoy is nice. And really, to be frank and honest with you, now with no one in the house but us, it's a lot nicer. I can walk around with my shorts on if I want to. You got someone else in the house, you got to put all your clothes on. It's just a lot more freedom, when you close your door, and you don't have to worry about slipping and saying a bad word or something like that. And I do get that way once in a while.
Oh, once in a while. But I know one thing that we didn't mention. It's about
What?
arguing. I refuse to argue with the kids. If I tell them no, don't stand there and just bug me to death. Because when my kids do that, I'm like, get them. Get the parents, because then they'll
I
argue.
sound like with the kids, but we don't argue with each other.
No, I don't argue. Yeah.
Really, there's not much to argue about now, but earlier on, there probably would have been, some times and situations when I would go somewhere and do something. Stay out half the night, come in. I was supposed to. Might be a few.
Uh-oh.
You're in trouble. So.
Yeah. But you
It wasn't that
No,
much
it wasn't that much,
because
but-
we always went together.
I know it, but
And I
I'd
worked
go out
night
with the
at the
guys and
hospital
get off and
for
work,
years.
especially when I was in the factory and younger, and we'd go by the VFW or somewhere and have a beer, and next thing you know it, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and you have them come home. All that old crazy stuff, but I quit doing that stuff a long time.
When I hear people argue with the kids, That drives me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot stand it. It all goes back to, like I told one of the girls I was talking to, respect. If they don't have any respect, I say that all the time.
How do you instill that in them, like your children or?
I don't know, and we start early. And if we tell them no, that means no. Don't come back a dozen times and ask me. And I might say, let me think about it. You can find it
Yeah, right there to your left.
Mm-hmm. I said, will you think about it? Okay, I'll think about it. And if they come back, I said, I thought about it, and you can't go this time. And Hurley would not change it. You know what I mean? You know, they're going and asking.
Yeah, they couldn't whipsaw us.
They couldn't do that.
Stay pretty solid with what you.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it?
And I think I was busy all the time. See, a lot of women are not busy. But by the time I did, I took care of the kids. I took care of Hurley's mother and all of the stuff he was involved in, and then worked at the hospital. Yeah, I worked at the hospital. And see, I had to go ahead and do what I was going to do and plan ahead. And so I've always been busy.
So you think like what strengthened you two was like communicating and being like kind of being at the same level about you know, okay, this is our decision, we're gonna stick with it, and they being together about it.
You're not allowed to come back and ask me not to do the same thing that I've told you no. And don't stand there and argue with me.
Yeah, we always worked well together.
Mm-hmm.
We built this home ourselves,
Yeah.
and people don't believe it, but
Really?
Every
Freddie
stitch we
worked at the hospital, and
Yeah.
and she would go to work about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, went to 11.
No, yeah, work 3 to
Yeah.
11.
But she would come over here every morning. We would come over here, for our home was over by the church, about a block from the church over there. And she would come over here and help me all day. And when I could really get something done, the way I had to work was 24 hours on duty and 24 off. And you do that 3 days in a row. And then the 4th day you're supposed to go in, you didn't go in. They call that a Kelly day. So I had 3 days in a row that I could work over here and do that. But we worked and built this house ourselves. And that took a lot of discipline and all, you know, to do that, because you had to, I tell that lumber yard to have certain things out here at a certain time, and they'd be here. And we did that. But a lot of people say, you guys aren't going to get my house built.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
You don't know what you're doing. That's what they said. We didn't, but we did.
We're learning.
Yeah.
We learned.
Did you make the plans and, you know, find all the materials and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, got
And
plans. It came out of a book somewhere. It was split level, and what we wanted, because we wanted a place for our kids where they could play ping pong and had a pool table and their friends and all that. That's why we built the downstairs like that. And then we needed 3 bedrooms, because there was one for each child and us. And then, because at that time I wouldn't think about my mother being here, but we worked it out. But anyway, and I took the plans to the lumber yard, and they made a drawing, draft of them. Anyway, dimensional size, so many inches.
the scale?
Yeah, scale. And then they helped me set up, what do you need first? Well, you need the cement blocks for the foundation and all that. And then you need your boards for the floor box and all that. And then you need your siren. And they would have it out here that morning. And some of the firemen helped me a little bit. And we had a group of guys that came and framed the house. That was after we did the foundation and laid the block. A guy that I knew, and I helped him work with him and got that done, and then we had a crew of guys that, I don't know, they just went around and did that. But they framed it up. I think they only charged us $700 frame this whole house. And when they left, the roof was on and the doors were in and the windows were in, so we could work inside.
And they went to Tennessee.
Yeah, they were trying to they wanted to go to Tennessee for Memorial Day. And them jokers, we started about the 15th of March. And by the 1st of May, they had that thing done. They had it up.
Those was working as guys I ever saw.
And everything. And so then we could work all summer at our leisure, wiring it and putting plumbing in and all the other stuff, the drywall on and hang the cabinets and all that stuff. So we started, I think, about the first day of March, and the first day of August we moved in this house.
Mm-hmm. So how old were your kids when you moved in? Or were they around yet? Or?
Yeah, they were probably, the oldest might have been, about 8, and my youngest was 4.
So you've lived here for quite a while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've only lived in 2 houses.
Mm-hmm.
His mom's house, and then the one, this one that we built.
Mm-hmm.
So you live with his mom, or was it just you moved in after?
When we first got married, we lived with my mother on the house when we first got married.
How was that?
And she came.
I don't know, maybe it's my temperament or all. I didn't, I wasn't, we weren't at each other's throats or anything. She was really a nice person. So everybody likes to live by themselves, but I mean, sometimes you can't have just what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked out real well. Really, what happened is that my oldest brother, we got married in 48, and he was killed in Korea in 1951. And
the oldest?
Yeah, and my other brother, Fred, was killed before Robert, wasn't he? I think it was 1950 when he was killed in an automobile accident. It's kind of a freak accident because he was going to pick my mother up. She worked at Ball Corporation at that time, and he was going to pick her up, and Freddie was with him, and I stayed home with the baby. And he hit a flatbed and flipped some way, and she got out of the car, and he got pinned in there to cut off our brain. But in other words, my mother was all by herself.
So I'm like,
And
oh,
so
I'll just
we
read
made
it right
the
now. And I
decision
got caught up and I
stay over there
was
with
like, well, I need to
her.
go back to my interview. But
So she didn't have any income.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way we started out. And then when we built this home, well, she sold that one and she moved over here with us.
Oh, okay. So she went right along with you
Yeah.
all the time.
Because she didn't have any income.
Do you think that since you built this house that has a special, like it ties a special feeling into it, making it more like home?
Yeah, we know wherever Neil
Wherever.
So you feel really secure in here?
Wires and
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you feel a sense of accomplishment, And it's nice now that you don't have to make no house payments. That's the nice part of it.
But I keep telling her we're going to have to use the house up. He talks all around it.
Why? Just because, or?
Just because.
There's too much room.
right.
Yeah.
Too much. There's too much room
Mhm.
for us, and the steps that we love and everything. That's
As you get older,
hard. When you get old.
it's harder to go up and down stairs.
Yep.
Do you feel like because it's empty, or because it's I guess less full, that it's less like home, or is it just you just need to? I don't know.
You just I don't need this much house.
Well, there's a lot more to it than just house too. You got, like, I've shoveled that driveway off out there
Yeah.
umpteen times this year. And I got angry with my shovel and everything else, shoveling that snow. You got to cut all this grass around here, you know, it's always something to do when you got a house, you know, go out there and paint the trim or whatever it is, you know, every spring you got to do something, and it's a lot of work, and I think I would really enjoy living in a condominium where somebody else cuts the grass and shovels the snow and does all that stuff.
Right, do you think putting all that work into it makes it almost harder to give up then?
Oh yeah, I think it'd be harder for us to give it up, but you know, I don't